What's up, everyone? I hope you're doing well today. So today we have a question from Serendipity, who says, how did you find out you had an addictive personality, and how did you manage to control your bad habits? Also, how did you manage that beautiful beard of yours? A barber, or do you self-groom? Okay, so obviously the most awesome question is the one involving my awesome beard. So I'll answer that one first. So my beard is like, I think it's 18 inches. Last time I measured it. So like if I hold it, let's see. We'll see how long longest one is about that. So yeah, probably about 18 inches. Here's a picture of me before I went to prison. Look at that. Like actually dark hair. It's not all white. So that was me before I went to prison. So this beard, I've been growing this beard now for a little bit. So this is all self-groomed. I don't use I know you go on, you see all these guys oh, use this oil, use this oil, use this comb, use this, all these specialty beard products. I don't do any of that crap. I use regular Pantene shampoo, and I use some really cheap ass anti-frizz stuff. I don't know what the name of it is. If anyone actually cares, feel free to ask me in the comments, and I'll go in my bathroom and look at it and write down the name and send it to you. But I use all cheap stuff, man. I don't use any of that beard grooming crap. And I don't really take care of it. I don't really trim it all that much. It's every once in a while, I had some dog clippers. That horrible. I get some dog clippers, and I'll just trim going down right here, just so it doesn't poof out too crazy, and I might trim my mustache a little bit, but I mean, usually I just take a Mach 3 razor and kind of trim it, to bring it down so that I don't have hair going in my mouth when I eat. It's disgusting. But I mean, I know in my other video I talk about this dude Country who had a long beard, and for the longest time when I had my beard and it was this long, I just I'd have a bar of soap, you know what I mean, that I'm washing up with. I just use that in my beard. I didn't use moisturizer or conditioner or anything in my beard. And for you guys out there who get you grow your hair and it gets itchy, moisturize it. That's probably, do that, it'll help at least a little bit. But I was growing this, back when it wasn't, it wasn't it seems like it's a trendy thing now. And I've always had a beard, or I've always had long facial hair. The reason is because, at the end of the day, I'm a moonshiner, and this is literally a moonshiner's beard. That's what it's called. The moonshiner's beard is nice because there's no real upkeep. You just don't do anything. You just leave it alone. I've kind of shaped it over time to have it this lawn gnome kind of V thing going on. But it's a wicked pain in the ass. I've thought so many times about just going babyface and shaving it all off, because it just I roll I'll be asleep, right, and I'll roll over and it'll catch on something, and it's so in the middle of the night, someone's yanking. It's or it'll be over here, and I'll roll over and I'll get caught, and I'll wake up and I'll be oh, son of a bitch, I'll have to move it. So it's really inconvenient, but I think I don't think anyone in my life would recognize me, my wife's always known me to have a beard, at least this long. And everyone really, I just think I'd look like a 12-year-old, it's just, I think it would look really weird. But yeah, so I self-groom. I used, just crap that's in the bathroom for it. So yeah, I used to, back when what I used to do is, I would put it sometimes when I went to sleep. I'd put electric bands on it, those black bands they use, for like box braids or cornrows or whatever. I would use those. Those work really well on it. But I would add a lot of moisturizer to my beard, like before I went to like fruit teas, I think it is, the clear stuff. But I would add that to it, before I laid down. And like really at the end of the day, if you want to grow like a really full beard, like I see a lot of people who like, they spend all these money on these beard kits and all this, gimmick bullshit. Like, at the end of the day, get some vitamin E pills. Like vitamin E grows your fingernails and it grows your hair. So get some vitamin E, just condition it and wash it. And, it doesn't have to be some, every day I'm going to, wash it and condition it and brush it for 20 minutes and, style it. And like, you can have all that crap, but like, I'm just not into all that, I'm a very simple dude. Like I'm just, I just, yeah, I'm rambling now at this point, but, see, I definitely self-groom. Now addiction. Okay. So this is going to be a little bit long-winded. What a shock. I know. So with that, it's like going back to when I was a kid, I got in trouble at YMCA camp. What a shock. Little badass. So I got in trouble. I think I was fighting, or I threw rocks at someone. They were on a swing. I threw rocks at them or some, shit like that. Little badass. And, so they were like, the administration of the camp, was like at the time, my mother, she's like a single mom, she's trying to bust her ass and, she's working, she did a really good job, that's totally unheard, and she's been there for decades, but, she got like this really good job and she's like, working her ass off. So like, she can't just like, it's not, I don't really have another place to go. You know what I mean? So they were like, hey, listen, like, we're not going to expel your son, but we can't keep him, around the kids his age because he doesn't get along with them. So, we're thinking about, it's like a skid straight program kind of. They're like, instead of having me with like other 9-year-olds, they're going to stick me with like the 13, 14-year-old kids, who like are like the big kids, so like stick me with them. And like, I get along with them awesome. They love me, like, oh, what's up, little man? Like, they're like, I don't be getting any fights over here. We'll kick your ass, So it was interesting. But like, they're playing spin the bottle and doing all this other crap, I had no interest in any of that shit. But then I remember like they go out in the woods and they'd start like random fires. I thought that was awesome, not like an arsonist kind of way. They go out just to have a fire, So they go out hiking in the middle of the woods, start a fire. And I put it out and all that, but like they'd start a fire, and like a lot of times they'd smoke weed, when they're watching the fire, smoking weed. So like I tried it once with them and didn't do anything. I was like, this is stupid. It tastes like crap too. So they're like, oh, whatever, man. They're like, oh, here, try this. So they give me a cigarette. I smoke it, I cough my ass off. Tastes like crap too. But they're like, oh no, you got to inhale it. So I'm like, all right. So like I inhale it, or I think I do. And they're like, oh, you're not doing it right. You got to do it like this. So I did it until I got it. And then like the next day I got it again. And like and I eventually get to a point where I got it down pat and I perfected it, which is kind of like a personality trait of mine, where it's like, if I'm interested in something, I work my ass off on it. So anyways, I get this thing perfected where I can now smoke, and I got addicted. What a shock. So I smoked cigarettes for a week and pretty much got addicted. And so I ended up like, I leave summer camp, and like, my mom meets my stepdad, and we end up moving, and like, I get to the place I'm living at, and like there's a store down the street, and basically I figure out the system for robbing this store. And how I did it was like, I watched their security cameras when they changed, because they had the tapes back then. So when they changed the tapes, I'd look and see what angles the security camera would see. And I realized that, like, because I was short, if I put my hand on the counter like if there's something happens over to the left, and they look to the left, to the right, or if they're not at the counter, like they're in the bathroom or something, I can put my hand on the counter and push up really hard and jump at the same time, and I can grab a pack of cigarettes up top. So I do that. I walk in, I act like I was looking around, I'd wait for them to like look at something or turn around or whatever. And as soon as they did, I'd run over and I'd jump up like this with one hand, push myself up on the counter, grab the pack of cigarettes, drop myself back down, put the pack in my pocket, and then grab something from the counter. And by the time they were looking around, I was handing it to them. So put some thought into it. And I did this for a long time. Once I got to a point where they discovered what I was doing, they were like, originally they're like, we're going to call the cops. And, then they were like, they talked to my mom, my stepdad. My stepdad was like, he'll never do it again. And, he beat me fucking horribly for it. But, so I ended up, never stole from that place again, but I was banned from there. So I couldn't steal from that place again. So I ended up just paying, some of my friends' bigger brothers would end up going and get cigarettes, and, I'd pay them, or I'd stand outside the store, pay extra, steal some money from my stepdad to do it, because screw him. He'd beat my ass anyway, so it really didn't matter. So, that was it. And, my whole philosophy at that point, I'm already addicted to cigarettes, but I'm like, I'm getting just stomped on a regular basis by him. So I'm like, maybe if I smoke, I'll die faster, I didn't, want to cut my wrists or any shit like that, but I didn't want to live, because every day I was in fears, waiting to get beat. Whipped with telephone cords, or get my head smashed into a wall. I'm not going to get into it, but it was really bad. So, anyways, I ended up, there's a whole nother story to that, but, we fast forward, and, at the age of 16, I had left my house, ran away, and I lived in Connecticut for a little bit, in Hartford, and then I moved back, and I was living in New Bedford, Mass, where I was born, actually, and I was living with this lady that was 50, 55, something like that, because I was dating her daughter, who was my age, and then I'm hanging out one day, she went, her daughter went to school still. I dropped out, I was selling weed and shit, and her mother was like, oh, do you want some coke? And I was like, nah, I'm good. You know what I mean? And she's like, oh, I'll make you feel like God. I was like, all right, I'll take a little bit. So a year later, I'm still, sniffing coke. Me and, girlfriend at the time were broken up. I'm still hanging out with her mom because we're sniffing coke on a regular basis. I'm robbing, doing beanies during the day. And, statute of limitations is up. So, yeah, I'm doing, beanies and that's what I'm doing. And, to answer your question about, how I quit is, I just looked at my life, I've been doing this for a year, and I was like, man, I probably made 150,000 to 300,000, and I'm 38. We're talking about when I'm 16. So it's a lot of money back then, So, I was like, this is retarded, and that was it. I made the decision to not go back there and, change shit up. And that's exactly what I did. And, I ended up changing stuff up, and I hung out with different people, and it turned out those people weren't drug addicts. They were drug dealers on a big level. But they were also really violent. And, it ended up leading to me catching a really bad assault. And that's, towards that, when I was 17 is when I caught my assault, and I went to county, and that was different, going into a place with There's a lot of violence. The jail that I went to is responsible for a quarter of all suicides in county jails in Mass. So it's a really, really, really bad place. Super violent, a lot of gangs. It's a really, really bad spot to be in. And like I went in there, you know, I'd been in military school, a bunch of this, so I was jacked, played football, did wrestling, kickboxing, a good portion of my life. So I went in there and I was ready, and I never had any issues, you know. Maybe because I'm respectful, I mind my own business, but I never had any issues in county. A lot of interesting stories there, but so when I got out, I moved to Rhode Island, and I didn't have a job. I didn't really have anything, you know. I was kind of dropped off there, and I took off there after they told me they were going to violate my probation in Mass for missing a court date, because I went to my probation officer instead of going to my court date, which is a whole other story I already told in this channel. But like, so after that, like I smoked a little bit of weed. I drank every once in a while, and I smoked cigarettes, and that's what I did till I was like 34. And after that, man, I just ended up, you know, quitting. Well, it was like years after that that I ended up quitting. Like when I got out of prison, I stopped drinking completely. I don't drink at all, anything, no alcohol whatsoever. Not because I was an alcoholic or anything, like, but just because like I don't enjoy it. Like when I drink, I feel stupid. Like, if you were to see me, like, the majority of my day is spent right here at this desk, right? So I work remote, so I do, like, you know, 8 hours a day. I have my regular job. And then after that, I do the podcasts, I do these videos, I work on books, I work on my master class, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty much at this desk from 6 a.m. to 8 or 9 p.m., you know, every night. And it's crazy. It's a lot of stuff, but, so I guess that's my new addiction. So yeah, I mean, the cigarettes, I tried the patch, I tried the gum, I tried everything to quit, and none of it worked. What I ended up doing was, I forget what it was, some kind of prescription. Like I told the doctor, I was like, listen, man, my lungs hurt, it hurts to breathe. You know what I mean? And, you know, he was like, here, try this. I was like, you know, my only question was, are there any opioids in it? Because if there are, I'm not touching it. I never did heroin, never did meth, never did anything super hard like that. You know, like I said, the hardest drug I ever did was, you know, powder cocaine. And that was for like a year. And, it's like, nah, there's no opioids. And he looked at me like I was nuts. I don't trust doctors, you know, I don't, like I said, it was legal drug dealers, you know, I know more doctors who have gotten people hooked on smack than drug dealers, you know what I mean, which is crazy. So, that said, you know, I hope that answers all your questions. If you guys have any other questions, feel free, drop them in the comments. I love hearing you guys' questions, and I love answering them. Just one, it benefits me because you guys literally are pretty much writing my content for me, and it answers the questions that you guys have. So it's awesome. It's a very symbiotic thing, I find. So definitely, guys, have any questions, don't be shy. Definitely leave them, and I'll definitely answer them. And if I've already answered them, I'll try to let you know what video, but I got a lot going on, so sometimes I don't always remember. But you guys, subscribe if you haven't yet, and definitely smash that like button, and I will see you guys in the next video.